Who is it?
Hooyo ma joogtaa?
Hooyo Mataalo. She went shopping.
Hooyo markay timaado haba xabiibaa kuu timid ku dheh.
Okay, habo.
Yo, wagwan, assalamu alaikum, damantina kuso dawada, and welcome to Hooyo Mataalo podcast. I'm Lee, short for Liban.
I'm Sam, short for Samata.
This is about take, 101?
It's about 101,
but yeah, no, we're finally here.
Finally, man.
It took us a long time to get this off the ground, to be honest. We probably started talking about this about 2 years ago, but yeah, we're finally here, man. Start of the rodeo, you know.
The rodeo, man. Start of the journey, man.
Literally,
it's cracking.
It's the beginning of, you know, like it's not always easy to get an idea off the ground and you know,
Definitely.
like just click that record button.
Yeah.
Like we pondered on it for some time, and obviously there were circumstances that were out of our control. One being you living in Poland.
Yeah.
So yeah, now you've been back for how long now?
Yeah, I've been back for a year now. You know, I left July 2019 or so. I went there actually for work, and July 2019, I'm supposing.
Yeah, I think
July 2019.
It was definitely around that period.
Yeah. So no, actually, sorry, excuse me. It's actually July 2020, and then I came back now. I left July 2019 and came back July 2020. So it's literally a year itself. So I've been back now. Well, it's coming up to a year now. So yeah, man, it's been.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm quite sure.
I'm trying to remember that time.
It's actually 100% sure. It was July 2019. Left Poland, Krakow, 2020, because it was the pandemic still, you know, running down there too. So yeah, I've been back now here for more or less a year now.
Yeah, no, I remember the one. There was one time where I came to see you.
Yeah.
It was late at night, and we was kind of having a conversation, and I realized you were the only person that I could probably start a podcast with.
Yeah.
So I think after I came to visit you, I flew to Denmark, and during that that plane journey, like it was just me by myself. I was just thinking, pulled out my phone, and I just started drafting stuff down in the notes, and I kind of, we was just kind of waiting for you to come back, really.
Yeah, you know what? You came down. You was on a little Euro tour, to be honest, going around everywhere. So you came down to me, actually, I think it was around December. Yeah, you did come down to me for 3 days or so, and what happened was it was a late night, actually. We had, heart-to-heart talks and everything else. We had fruitful conversations, as the Somali politicians tend to say or tweet, you know, when they get delegation down. Don't know what that means or whatever it might, you know, whatever they might have spoken about. But yeah, definitely, it was actually really good. And for you to draft it down and everything, you know, everything starts off an idea first and foremost, an idea. But then it comes down to, you know, when you start to make the planning stages now, when you do the planning stages of the actual pod, coming up with a name, what the production might look like, what the content's going to be about. I think the best thing is that we agreed on what the type of content hopefully is going to be.
100%.
Not the most generic things. And definitely, yeah.
Yeah, listen, I'll say this explicitly, yeah. This is not one of those 50k meher podcasts or are Somalis Arabs. Like, that's not the type of content. So if you want that type of content, then yeah, this ain't it. I'm going to say it off the rip, literally.
Yeah, listen, if you're looking for those kind of, you know, content, there's probably loads of different productions out there. Somalis that talk about it or whatever that might be, or whether it might be threads on Reddit or wherever the hell they go back and forth. So
do you know what? Yeah,
you know what I mean?
go on Clubhouse. Like,
Clubhouse.
You'll catch a lot of that talk on Clubhouse.
Loads of that talk, but definitely, I think ours is a bit more different, more structured. I'd say, definitely, we wanted to have more fruitful conversations, and you know, conversations that mostly champion our communities, especially in diaspora, and we tend to have great role models. But the thing is that they're not highlighted as much as we tend to see. Is more the negative side of things
100%.
that are, you know, seen more when it comes to the diaspora. When people talk about there's you know, loads of Somalis doing bad things, whether it's to do with drugs or whatever else it might be. So yeah, we're seen in a more negative, you know, limelight. But then again, I think there's so much going on within our communities that we're doing such great things, whether it's to do with business, tech, there's loads of, people in the medical fields, and these are things that you definitely want to highlight. And I definitely would add to the fact that there is loads of different, communities out there that do things from the ground up, and really are engaging within their communities. So that's definitely something that we're going to highlight, definitely down to several different episodes. I think social mobility is going to be one of those.
Yeah, no, 100%. And what we're gonna do is try and have like different type of guests on that will, that can give insight into their professions, or just help us understand certain topics, like in approaching certain topics.
I think that's definitely one thing that we highlight. We don't want to be the go-tos to topics that we have no knowledge about. And I see so many people talk about, when they talk about community aspects when they have no knowledge about it. But I think it's better to bring down people with certain expertise that know, when it comes down to mental health, people that are involved in communities, initiatives, whatever that might be. And I think those are the ones that we're going to benefit the most from.
100%.
Definitely, that's one
but
thing. We're going down.
One thing being an example is, for instance, like you did mentoring for a short period.
Yeah.
So, like, you can obviously talk about your experiences and the kind of conversations that you had, your observations, and what you picked up from that.
Yeah, definitely. I was actually mentoring in a school, secondary school, and this was in Hansel actually. And I think that's probably one of the best experiences I had. I had about 10 Somali kids actually, and what it was is these kids were on the brink of being, excluded. Now, I was with them I'd say about 7 months or so. So after 7 months or so, we drafted a plan and say, how can we intercept them from not being excluded and putting into the pipeline of, they call this a pipeline of going into, going to being kicked out. And once you're kicked out, you go into so many different avenues, whether it's to do with drugs or other kind of activities. So what I realized was after I say about them 6-7 months or so that I was with those kids, I saw a very big change. And this was down to having positive representation and sitting down with them and actually understanding of what the needs are.
No, 100%. And as the season goes on, when we do get to that kind of episode, then like you'd have a lot to bring to that episode.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely going to be one of those. I think mentoring, an episode on mentoring, positive influence within our communities, and how does that impact the youth itself. And I think that's definitely going to be an episode where we're going to be highlighting a lot of things. And that's definitely, we're going to have a great guest on, hopefully, to talk about different aspects.
Yeah, with this introductory episode, I kind of just obviously wanted to just explain about, give an insight to, our relationship. For instance, me and you obviously went to the same school.
Yeah.
You was a year ahead of me, and we knew each other for a long time.
Yeah.
But I think would you say about 4 years ago we kind of grew closer together?
Yeah, I'd say about 4 years or so. But this was due to the fact that we was actually living quite. Yeah, we was about
close to each other.
Yeah, it was about a road from each other. So we sing of each other a lot more. But then again, at the same time, we was playing for the same team.
Oh yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah,
so we was actually playing for the same team.
I forgot about
and
that.
Funny enough, you was actually the one that brought me into the team.
Was that?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you was actually. You brought me into the team. So think about it. We was now living a road away from each other. You brought me onto the same team. We're kicking ball together too. So that's when the relationship started to flourish a little bit more. When you spend a lot more time together with each other. But going off the fact that what you just said now earlier on was, we did go to the same school. The experiences that we did have,
pretty similar. We know a lot of the same people, and we've seen how a lot of people have turned out, grew up in the same ends.
Yeah.
So
those are definitely things. I think it's best to start off with what our journeys was like, because I think there's a lot of Somali Europeans
100%
that moved from, whether it's Scandinavia, whether it's to do with like whether they came from Holland, whether they came from various different countries, but then they all came down to the UK more or less. So there's it's like the UK became a hub for different types of Somalis.
Literally, that wave from the early 2000s to about 2005.
Early 2000s. So what was it like for you when you first came?
To be honest, I was in for a shock when I came here. Like, I'll give an example. I think the first area we moved to was Kilburn,
Yeah.
but then we moved to Southall. We was maybe in Kilburn for about a couple of weeks,
Yeah.
but then we moved to Southall and we settled. We was there for a couple of months, and I remember like where I've come from is like it's like a little town, a little village,
Yeah.
like just a few kilometers outside of like a big town, a big city.
And this in Denmark, right?
In Denmark, yeah. And I remember seeing like a turban for the first time,
Yeah.
literally, and I was shocked. I'd never seen a turban in Denmark before.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just remember saying to my dad like, what's this? Who are all these people? Because you know how Southall is. Southall is literally.
You know what? I had the same experience because I think it was in 2004. I came from Holland, so I came from a city called Utrecht, so it's like the 4th biggest city. So when I came down, I thought, I actually settled in. I think it was in Southall. I was there for the first, I think about 6 weeks or so. So fun enough, you just mentioned that you're using Southall too.
Mad.
So I was there too. I was there for 6 weeks. But the thing was, like you just said, you came across a turban. So someone who's Sikh before. And as I was walking with my dad at that point, I must have said Assalamu alaikum to the guy. So I was thinking, well, I'm not getting just about a greeting back. So my dad was like, whoa. By the way, he's not Muslim, So my dad had to give me a whole breakdown of what it was like. So then I realized as I grew up, you know what, the UK is a lot more diverse than it was in Holland.
100%.
So you got people from all types of backgrounds, really, wherever that might be. So it was actually an eye opener. I'd say the biggest thing was more of a culture shock to how people are living down here, because I think when it comes to the youth side of things, anyways, we tend to. Anyways, how it was in Holland, anyways, we've got so many different playgrounds, we've got so many activities to do and everything else. So when I came down to London, I was like, so what do the kids do here?
Yeah.
There's nothing to do.
No,
There's like a cage
100%.
and there's a empty park. So what's there to do, really and truly?
To be honest, like you highlighted it there. Like I'd say probably raising children and like growing up, like I'd prefer to have, like obviously not growing up here and growing up over there.
Yeah, I think everyone, a lot of people had the same sentiment. Actually, I think it was the first 3 days when I was in the UK. I told my mom straight, take me back.
No,
seriously, I was like, you know what? There's nothing to do here. It's so boring. Like kids down here, they're mostly in the houses and everything.
100%.
They're shacked up to do nothing.
100%.
You know what I mean? Everyone's playing like. I think it was like PS2, whatever.
Bro,
That's
it's
how
the
long
community.
Yeah, so it's nothing to do down there. But then again, when it was in Holland, we had a whole program for the summer. So this whole program is down to like for people who take benefits or whatever that might be. We received we had our activities subsidized. So whether it's swimming would be like 20p or so, 30p. So it's really cheap. But then it allows everyone else to actually go and swim
100%.
or do these things, or whether it came down to sports or face painting, or so it was really good. So you had this whole thing of the whole summer was already pre-planned because they used to give us a booklet of all the activities throughout the summer. But when I came down here, it was more like you had this youth center, but this youth center, it's not much to do. Like there's a few activities here and there, but it's not always open.
The contrast,
you know what I mean?
there's a big contrast, like especially like with the community spirit.
Yeah.
You know how they say like what was that saying about you're raised by the village?
Yeah.
That's what it's literally like over there. Like I remember, I'd go out from early. My mom can see me from the balcony. She knows who I'm playing with.
Yeah.
Everybody knows each other, literally.
Yeah, that's definitely. I think a lot of people are gonna definitely agree with this, whether they live in different European countries, and this is probably, I'd say, really relatable in that sense where we probably all lived in blocks.
100%.
But I definitely did anyways.
I lived
when
in a
I
block
first
too.
moved down here, I was living in a house. I was like, "What? I've got a garden now."
So
it's one of those ones.
Yeah.
We had all these things. So literally, I had my dad on the balcony just watching. I come back in at 10 o'clock in the evening.
Yeah, that's the thing. To be honest, like that's the major thing, because like you could live, like for instance, in the UK now. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. Like I live on a street. Yeah, on the other side of the street there might be a Somali family.
Yeah.
but we're not integrated like that in terms of like, we don't know each other like that. Whereas in the block where I lived, every family knew each other.
Yeah.
Literally, like everybody knew each other. Like whether it be, and that's not just the Somali community, by the way. That's everybody else.
You know
The
what, I was just about to
Bosnians,
highlight that. Yeah, us too.
the Sri Lankans.
Yeah.
Everybody knew each other.
With us too, we had the same thing where we had this, it was a whole community vibe. Like literally, we just highlight community spirit where we had where the Turks, we had the Moroccans, Indonesian people from Suriname, we had Somalis, we had all type of people. But everyone's cool with each other. Everyone looks out for each other. It's not just like Somalis look for the Somalis kind of thing where everyone's just chilling with each other. But then what I realized, the experiences, right? This is a big experience. My cousins, when they used to come over to me in Holland when I was living there anyways, they had a great time because they're allowed to play outside.
Your cousins from the UK?
From the UK. When they came down to Holland to spend the summer with us, for example, they had a great time. They used to play outside all the time. So it's more to do with freedom, I'd say, not having to...
Well, like, what do you think about it now? Like looking back, would you have, like, obviously you can reflect now. Do you go back to Holland? Like, do you still?
You know what? I go rarely actually now. I think when I was younger, I tend to go more frequent, but then that was then. Now it's a bit more different. I'd say it's more of a slower pace down there now. When you go there, it's proper like there's not much to do. I'd say as an adult.
So are you happy? Are you happy that your family made that decision?
I think definitely that's one thing I can definitely highlight is that looking back to everything else, that it's actually a positive thing that our parents moved us over here. But what would you say was the reasons for your family moving over here?
Do you know what? Yeah, I asked my mum like recently. I asked her like what was, because I kind of had an idea, I knew, but she just kind of confirmed it for me. Like it was literally because my dad was a translator over there.
Yeah.
And Somalis stopped coming in, like after a few years and whatnot. So he literally was out of a job. So he came over here in I think 2003 or 4, like a year before we came.
Yeah.
And then kind of he found a job here and just decided, I need to move the family. So it's just an opportunity, like work in itself.
Definitely, that's something I can agree with. I think my dad said the same thing. I think this is the early stages of, the talks are going on and how our community actually went around it, which is actually funny as well. We had the community centre in Holland, and on Sundays is where everyone, learns Quran and everything else, and tuition goes on. So what happened is on one Sunday evening, everyone gathered around and said, you know what, all the Somalis, by the way, they came to a meeting and said, you know what, let's migrate to the UK. So, they actually had a massive gathering and said, let's all do this at one time. So funny enough, in 2004, I think it was between July to August, I'd say about 80% of the families that lived in the whole area moved out to the UK, which is crazy. They moved to different cities, Leicester, Bristol, Birmingham, London, Sheffield, so all sorts of places. So it's not just that they all concentrated in London now, but they actually all spread it down. So I think that's down to the fact that they all had families living in all these different parts of the country itself. But I think one thing to highlight is definitely, I must have seen a documentary, I think, and they spoke about, actually a Dutch journalist came down, I think it was, he went to Birmingham, I think could have been Small Leaf or so, but he must have questioned everyone and said, what are the reasons for the Somalis that there was a mass influx of Somalis that moved from Holland to the UK?
Yeah.
And one of the major things they must have highlighted was the fact that there's opportunity for business. Okay. And Somalis are business oriented people. We're really into, working for ourselves and everything else. So I think what they always said is that in Holland it's so difficult to even open up a shop, and that's something I definitely understand. There's a lot of, red tape involved, there's a lot of barriers in order for you to even open up something. So when they came down to the UK, it was so easy for them to open everything up. Yeah. And this is probably down to the fact that there's already, you're looking for a place to rent. There's an Indian person, Pakistani person, whoever that might be, who owns this property, and now he's subleasing to you, which is so easy. Yeah. So there's a migrant to another migrant in that sense.
100%.
So that's definitely, I think, it made it so much easier in that sense. So yeah, definitely, these are the things to highlight.
Yeah, do you know what's funny? Funny enough that you say that. Yeah, when I was last, I go Denmark at least once or twice a year, just to kind of like I use it to get a break. So is the quality of life is much better over there. Like if you want to raise children or just in general, the quality of life is, I think it's even rated top 3, you know, like best countries to live in. Like,
yeah.
so I went over there recently, and there was a Pakistani shopkeeper that I met.
Yeah.
This was around, I think around January, like New Year's Eve New Year's Eve period. And he was a Pakistani shopkeeper who'd moved from, I think he lived in Shepherd's Bush or Acton. And I asked him, it was very random, you know.
Yeah,
I bumped into him. He's a shopkeeper there. I asked him, yo, like what made you move over here? And he was telling me literally the quality of life. Like he believes, like, obviously he's lived in the UK for a period, and he believes that the best decision for him was to move his children over here. It's cleaner, you know. Work life is much better. Like, they don't know what 12 hours is of work. They don't know what 10 hours of work is.
I agree. There's a certain amount of hours that they work over there compared to probably here.
Yeah, so like so he just made the decision to move his family from the UK to Denmark.
No, definitely, that's something I agree with. But I think education plays a part in why we moved anyways. I think it's so much easier to, you know, go into maybe university or so, because I know in Holland anyways, the barriers going into university is crazy. Back in them days anyways, it was. So I think one of those things was, I think education played a big part in everything for the decision. Anyways, on our side it was anyways, where it was so much more easier. I think the language too, English being predominantly, you know, a major language in the world anyway. So they were like, yeah, why not? Let's just move over and see where it takes us.
Yeah, you know what? And alhamdulillah, they did, innit?
Man, definitely, man.
Alhamdulillah, they did. Because like
Big contrast.
life is way too like slow paced over there. Like
Way
once you
too
get used to life over here and the fast pace of, you know, London, like the city, and just, bro, I was thinking about it the other day. I was telling myself, like, you can literally like walk around London, yeah, and bro, everybody just looks grumpy. Like, and the difference over there is like, you just walk around and everybody just kind of has a smile on their face.
I think it's probably different when you go up to the north, Manchester, wherever. They might be a bit more happy, but when it comes to London, you know, it's fast paced. Everyone is on their grind. Everyone's on to the next thing. No one's got time even to, you know, wait out for each other.
They say, have you ever clocked, like, they say, oh, you're right, but they never stick around to hear the answer.
It's just, they're not here for the answer. That's the thing, because, you know, time is of the essence. Like, they cannot wait for nothing, and they just need to move on as soon as possible.
100%.
But I think another thing to highlight is the fact that definitely one thing is that the right decision was made, in my opinion anyways. I'd say the fact that there's a bigger community of Somalis here, definitely flourishing in terms of, you know, business owners, education and everything else. I'd say when 2021 at the moment, I'm seeing so many positive, you know, role models at the moment.
100%.
Somalis in different sectors booming. You know what I mean? So representation at the moment is actually a really good thing.
100%.
Compared to maybe when early 2000s, where we're still a bit grounded, we're still trying to navigate our way around everything else. But now I think we're a bit more settled.
100%. Do you know what? Yeah. Like, what was your experience like just that 1 year period that you was in Poland? Like, in contrast, like, you've lived in Holland.
Yeah.
You live in the UK. What was it like in Poland? Like,
you know what? It's a big contrast. And to start off with, a lot of people like gonna be thinking, what? No, what do you mean you was in Poland? A Somali living in Poland? Now that's what I thought too. Yeah. But the thing is, I went out there for work. Actually, I went with my brother, and before I went out there, actually, I was trying to get trying to see, are there any Somalis in Poland? Really and truly, like, you know.
You was doing your background research.
Yeah, you know, you do a little bit of background research. You know, of course, it's Eastern Europe. It's not going to be Somalis like how it's going to be in UK or any other, you know, Western European country. But then I must have come across a universal clip, Somali universal clip, you know,
University TV.
The University TV clip, and then it must have been around 2011 or so, and they must have went to Warsaw, which is the capital in Poland, and there's a booming Somali community there, and I see Somali shopkeepers. I'm seeing a whole massive community center, so I'm seeing a whole transition of how to integrate with the Polish, you know, culture and everything else. That was a massive shock to me. I was like, what?
Because when I think about it, like, obviously I came to see you and I was only there for 3 days.
You was there for 3 days only.
But like, obviously I've got my experience of being there for 3 days, but you lived there for a whole year.
Yeah, my take on it is a whole different thing. But coming back to that video itself, so, you know, I must have seen it, and the funny thing about the whole thing was the fact is that I think the reason was that I think there's about 2,000 Somalis anyways that lived in Poland, and especially around the capital, and this due to the fact that they must have had this policy of taking in migrants. I think one of those EU policies, but Poland had to take in the Somalis at that point. So these are all newcomers that first came into it, and I must have been in a cab. A cabbie actually picked me up in Krakow one time, which is actually funny, and he looked at me and said, "Oh, where are you from?" And I said, I'm from Somalia. Like, and he goes, "Oh, you know, I lived in Chicago." It's like, you know, you get them Polish Americans anyways. I lived in one night. He said, funny enough, I was actually listening to the radio just now, and there was a Somali professor talking on it. I said, Somali professor?
In Poland?
In Poland. I said, what? And then he gave me a backdrop and everything, and he said, you know what, this Somali professor actually is a leading professor in one of those major universities in Poland, and he's saying, you know what, I was really shocked about how clear, concise he was in the language itself. He was, proper talking about everything else, but it's the language he was actually, emphasizing on. But I think he was mentioning how this Somali professor was there for 25 years or so. So he's there for quite 25 some time.
years.
So see, Somalis, we're all around everywhere. Don't be
naturally
shocked.
Nomads.
If you catch us in, I don't know what country, Vietnam or something, I'm pretty sure there's Somalis in Vietnam.
Bro, they touch every corner
they touch
of
everywhere.
this.
I'm even seeing Somalis in Slovakia. So what are we doing in Slovakia?
Yeah. Do you know what's funny?
mean?
I know a couple Somalis that speak what's that language, man? Is it Hindi?
No, in India, I wouldn't be surprised.
No, but they're they're fluent. Like,
no.
I know a good couple. Like, I can go on my phone
Yeah.
and I got 6-7 numbers of guys that speak.
India is not surprising because I think even all the Somalis, anyways, my dad himself, he lived there for 6 years.
Okay.
So he speaks probably Hindi, wherever. Anyways, I know he does because he was there studying. So it shows anyways that we've been, we go places anyways. So there's
historically we're just
those
nomads.
nomadic values that we have. We just don't like to stay in one place or so. Even nowadays we have one of those ones where we you see an influx of Somalis moving over to Egypt or Turkey or
100%.
or whatever investment opportunities there might be out there or so. But yeah, definitely I was out there for a year. I think the toughest period is probably a month or so. Understanding everything, what it's like, how everything, the system. It's all about learning the system
So
itself.
like, how long would you say it took you to kind of adjust?
In all honesty, it took me about 5 months, I say.
5
and
months.
the reason, it might sound
5
crazy,
months?
but the reason it took me 5 months, proper understanding everything was, right, is because I'm working Monday to Friday. I don't have time to go anywhere as much. I was mostly, I was just going work, go back to the house or so, to the place I was staying at. And the thing is, I went with my brother, which was actually, I think that's probably one of the best experiences I had because it actually matured both of us in that sense.
Okay.
Because think about it, you're going from your mum's house now to a whole different country.
Yeah.
And it's you and your brother living in a place. So you're both, having to mature, whether it's learning how to cook. Cooking was actually a big thing.
I can imagine.
Literally, I went out there. The only thing I knew how to make beans, but I came out learning how to make, pasta or bris, all these things.
Yeah, one of these days you have to host me, man.
Yeah, no, I could whip it up for you, man. Don't worry about that. Like, I learned so many things, and I think this is one of those experiences where I think a lot of us need to take it in and just go for it. And I think it's more leaving that comfort zone that we have. So once you leave that comfort zone, you can adjust.
What are you trying to say? A lot of men are babied.
I wouldn't say that. I think some of us are a bit more spoon-fed than others.
Yeah.
I think this comes down to responsibilities.
100%.
And when we're not given those responsibilities, it doesn't allow us to. It
grow.
doesn't give us no growth, space to grow in that sense. So I think that's the thing that comes into it, right? So once, I'd say some of us are pampered in the sense where, Hooyo does everything for us, when it comes to the cooking, the cleaning, everything. And we just go out to work, we chill and whatnot. But
keyword, some.
No, because I've come across some of the guys where they're patterned, like they've, been living on the one since, at the age of 22 or so. So this doesn't come to any surprise to them. But what was really surprising when I was over there, actually, I came across Somalis actually in Poland, and when I was asking, this is actually in Juma, prayer. When I went to the mosque, I came across them, and surprisingly, these Somalis were from like actually Somalia.
Yeah.
They were from Kenya and all these different countries, and nothing fazed them when they were there. It's totally normal.
What do you mean?
Like,
Give an example.
when I say normal, I mean like they were so adjusted to the whole thing in comparison to myself. Like, for me, it was like, yeah, but the standard of living is so much different here in the UK, so much. So I'm more moaning about it all the time and say, yeah, UK's bad. But these are so much more content saying, mate, why is this guy moaning all the time?
Yeah,
What's
yeah,
wrong with
yeah.
this? You know,
No, 100%.
this UK guy just complaining all the time. But they were so much more chill with everything else. But at the same time, is that I could see with them is they were so much more mature, although it was roughly about the same age. Some were even younger than me. But then you can see the growth mindset and everything else that they have back home.
Yeah.
Whereas I think, coming back to the spoon-fed thing,
Yeah.
that these lot were just a lot more mature from a early age.
No,
Definitely.
but you know what it is like with the experience that I had, yeah.
Those 3 days you
do you know
say,
what?
yeah.
It makes sense, innit? That you said
Yeah.
5 months. First I was thinking a whole 5 months to
Yeah.
adjust. But it makes sense because like with me, like what's obviously like it wasn't the main thing was that there wasn't that many black people in general.
No, that's the
So
thing.
I remember we was on a
That's-
tram at
yeah.
one point and I'm just looking around and not even just a tram. We went to a restaurant. Yeah?
Oh yeah, the restaurant.
And I remember like
Yeah.
people are looking at you like, you know, like you're fresh meat, literally, man.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Even the mall, for instance, yeah. The mall. What I done was what I was doing was I was trying to count how many black people that I came across in the
Yeah.
mall, other than us, obviously, and I think it was less than a handful. Literally,
must have
less than a handful. And it's like, you know, like when two people see each other and they know they're in the same
Yeah.
position, you give each other that little nod.
Yeah, yeah. No, that happened to me. I came across some people. Bear in mind that I've got to know so many different people from work itself. But then again, I got friends from Nigeria now, Gambia, all these different places now. But at the same time, I know exactly what you mean. The feeling of, do you feel like you're being watched all the time, like
100%.
all eyes on you? But then again, you need to look at how it's like for you know, I'd say they're so different to people that live in the UK, English folks anyways, that is, when the Polish people, they're so much more family oriented, I'll say. And
Yeah.
the fact is they like to mind their own business. So trust me, once they finish work, they go straight to the yard. They don't chill about nothing like that. And when you go, another thing is, you have to get rid of the whole, you know, mindset of, are they looking at me? Because if you keep thinking, and I did mention that to you when you first came to me, I said, listen, don't act like everyone's watching, because then what happens is you start to get paranoid, and once you get paranoid, you start to lose the plot a bit.
100%,
So you
100%.
just gotta be chilled about.
But on
it
that
and just,
point though,
yeah.
about minding their business, yeah.
Yeah, they do. Yeah,
What made me really realize it, yeah, was the cab journey from obviously the airport when I first landed.
yeah.
I jumped in a cab, yeah. This cabbie, there's no hellos, no nothing.
No,
Yeah,
they don't do
he
that.
just picks up the suitcase.
Yeah.
He opens picks up the suitcase and puts it in there.
Yeah,
But you know, like in the UK, you're used to chatting to the Uber driver or whatever, and just pass a normal conversation. And I don't know, a lot of people could speak English over there. I don't know if that was the case across the
I'd
whole
say
year.
some can, but you know what the funniest thing is down there? Yeah, there's no customer service. I'll tell you the funniest thing, yeah,
Lit-
which is
th- th-
crazy.
That's what I'm saying. He
You know
didn't
the
want to
customer
talk to me.
Now, they're not about that customer service, right? So I'll give you an example. I went one time to like electronic stores, like, you know, a Curry's version. So I went inside there, right? And then I went in there and I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to get approached without doubt. Like, you know, oh, what do you need? No joke. I didn't get approached for a good 20 minutes. And they're all standing there. I'm thinking, what's going on? So I must have approached one of them and said, yeah, I'm looking at this phone, etc., or the different appliances that I needed for the house, whatever that might have been. So I must have went back to my manager and said, you know, like, why is no one like coming forward to you? Where's the customer service at? Because, oh, we don't do that down here. Like, it's not like that. People are a bit more, you know, I think it's to do with the whole fact that they're still in the transition side of things, when they're coming from the communist side of, you know, just being, they're perceived as more cold, I'd say.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's not much banter chat. Funny enough, though, you come across the Polish ones that lived in the UK, that is, right? They'll chat to you, trust me. I've come across them because I had to pay a fine one time on the tram, right? And I had to go to the headquarters to pay that fine. Lucky enough, I came across a girl. She used to live in Norwich, and when she noticed, oh, why are you from London? I said, yeah. Once we got to chat and whatnot, right? She must have written off the fine for me.
No
and I was
way.
like, yo, literally, she wrote off anything, and she said, yeah, don't worry about that. I'll sort it out. But she was actually looking for a conversation, and she said, you know what, I miss the UK. There's a lot more warmth there. Everyone's more chatty. Da da da. So she's looking more for that community aspect and the vibe itself. So there's so much things you learn from there. Honestly, man, it's adapting, but the more crucial part is adapting to different cultures. That
100%.
and respecting different people's values and the way they come across, right? So those are the things. If that's the way they operate down there, it is what it is. Like you don't want everything to be the way you want it to be. Things don't work like that.
No,
So
100%.
when I said you got to adapt. Things work in the favor though. Don't get me wrong. In the sense of like, they mind their own business. That means no one bothers you. No
Yeah, of
joke.
course.
I'm walking around 11 at night. No one bothers you. See, obviously, don't get me wrong. When I first got there, I thought, you know what, there's going to be probably bare racial attacks. I'm going to be, chased down different places or whatnot. But that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
No joke. I never got one word, nothing. People mind their business. Don't get. I went to see my friend one time. Actually, he's from Gambia, and this was for like I went there to break my fast with him from Ramadan, and he never mentioned. He lived in one of those rough blocks down there. So I must have got there. I said, oh my days. Like, this is like an estate, but in Krakow and Poland.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to get chased down. But it's nothing like that. Sometimes, funny enough, you barely see people down there.
Yeah.
Like,
Now, do you know what? I did notice that. I did notice that. I remember you saying as well, like, that a lot of them are, they're family orientated. So they don't come out their homes.
No. They're literally inside the houses and everything else. They don't engage too much, and that's just how it is. Like, I had neighbours, don't get me wrong, which I barely saw in the year. But if I do see them, it's like, hello, that's about it. You know what I mean? That's what it was.
Yeah, no, at first, that cabbie, he spooks me out.
Nah, man, I told you, like, that's just how it's going to be like. So those 3 days, it must have been eye-opener for you, don't get me wrong.
No, 100%. It was interesting, but I could, just because of how they are as people, like, they just mind their own business. Like, I could see myself going back there.
No, it's actually, I tell a lot of people about it, in Krakow especially. It's great to go there in the summer for 3 days. No joke, for long weekends.
It's much
very
cheap.
cheap.
Very cheap.
This is the thing people don't do. No joke, a 3-course meal down there is what, £15?
Bro.
You're chilling.
No, I clocked it with the Bolt. Like, bro,
Yeah.
I was
Bolt
using
is a
Bolt,
joke.
yeah. Nothing went out of my account. It felt like nothing at all.
Bolt journey, no joke. I got so used to it taking to work sometimes, right? It must have taken sometimes like £3.
Literally.
And when it's £3, you get a bit too used to it. But obviously, like, after a while, I said, you know what? Let me just start taking public transport. So public transport, the tram, the bus, and everything else for the month, it came about to £30 or so. So I was like, yeah, let me just take that. Let me integrate a bit more.
No, 100%, 100%, 100%. It made sense, man. But yeah, nah. To be honest, like, that's like, when I came to visit you, one of those nights, that was definitely the decider that, yo, this podcast we have to kickstart this at some point. The minute you're back. So yeah, like,
no, definitely. I think we agreed on that. Definitely once we, let me settle back and everything else, and once, I get everything.
You took your time though.
Now I had, with circumstances, man. That's life, innit? You know what I'm saying? Like, you get different circumstances. The pandemic's going on, working from home, and all these things. So it takes a toll on you and everything else. But once now. Like we said earlier, you know how many takes this stuff takes.
Yeah.
You do loads of takes.
100%.
Production side of things. It's not as easy as it looks, but shout out to those ones that make content out there.
Do you know what it is? I'll be honest with you, yeah. Like, that I've made content, like, whether it was football compilations, like back like 7, 8, 9 years ago. Like, I've always kind of like loved making content, yeah. But this is the first time that I've put my face on anything.
Yeah.
So you have to understand, like, there's like coming up with an idea and then executing it. A lot of people just ponder on the idea part and they don't actually take the step. And it takes a lot to take that step.
Yeah, it does.
Literally.
Execution is key, man.
Execution
Honestly,
is key.
Like, it comes to the point where literally what you just mentioned is, listen, loads of people have different ideas, but executing, then now, I think that's probably the toughest part.
100%. Putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
Clicking that record button.
Making sure that, the planning stages of it. Right now, you know, we planned about a good 8 episodes anyways, but you know, it's not just that we're gonna go off the cuff like today, for example.
Yeah.
Today is off the cuff,
100%.
literally. It's more of an introduction based, I'd say, episode, just to get to know us a bit more, and from there on, we can definitely then hopefully,
Yeah, no, we'll get better at it.
concise episodes. I'd say.
Like, I don't know about you, but I'm not used to speaking on a mic or like.
Yeah,
I was never
It's
the
so
type.
new to me.
Even in school, like, I was never the
Yeah.
type, you know, like to be on a stage or
Yeah.
take part in no drama.
Same.
You know, like no
I was
drama.
more the introvert person. I was the quiet one.
No,
I never used to
100%.
speak nothing. I used to be more of the, I was the person that, you know, was at the back more listening to people. Whereas like,
100%.
I think as the years go by, anyways, there's more growth in that sense, and then you come
100%.
out your show a bit more, and then you come to the stage.
No, 100%.
I mean-
And do you know what it is like? We're obviously gonna get more comfortable as the episodes
Definitely.
go on.
As the episodes go by, we get a bit more comfortable, and definitely, I think the education will be a lot better. But at the same time, we have really good guests coming up then, and
Yeah.
you know, it's going to be a lot more engaging. And hopefully, the most important thing is that we want to make sure that the content that we produce, and this is the whole point that we started off with, is that it's going to be a lot more information based and more educational aspect of making sure that we have those key guests in.
Yeah, 100%. And having like the thing is like, for instance, I've seen on Twitter, like I said before, like good, you know, like I've seen good tweets, good threads and whatnot. But we need kind of audio based content.
Yeah, that's
You know,
definitely
what it will do is it will just kind of, it will start dialogue. Like we can kind of release an episode, give our viewpoints, you know, have a professional person there, like from a specialized field, and like we can, you know, like discussions can start from there. Someone might have a complete different viewpoint or, you know, things to add. So literally we've got comment sections and stuff like that for that, you know.
Yeah, look, don't get me wrong. Like, we're not inviting the trolls and whatnot to come and kill us off and that. But this is all about open dialogue and, you know, championing our communities and everything else. So there's nothing to, you know, this is we're not taking personal shots out there. You know what I mean? So it's more
100%.
to do with the fact that we're actually trying to, you know,
Bring out good
positive.
content,
Yeah,
like
definitely.
positive
I think
content, and just like not try and focus on the negatives as much,
but
also like, if you know, finding solutions to issues, you know, like
I
within
think-
the community,
I think that's literally it. Solutions.
and getting rid of ebb culture and stuff like that,
Yeah.
man. Literally, but
I think solution based is key. I think that's when you have guests that really know what they're talking about, and that is the actual field. But then you have conversations around that,
100%.
and then it makes people think, okay, you know what, I wasn't aware of this beforehand, but this really, you know, made me
100%.
think.
And even with stories, like people sharing, you know, like personal stories and whatnot. Like you can take anything, you know, from.
Yeah, I agree.
You could, one could be going through, you know, a similar traumatic experience to
Yeah.
someone else, and you've got someone here who's on the other side of it, you know, like
Yeah.
who's come out stronger out of, you know, a situation. So there's a lot to take from anybody's story, you know.
No, there's a lot to take, but then we have loads of different stories from diaspora itself, like Somalis. You know how we are. You know, where we tend to bust jokes. We're easygoing people. Majority of the time, that is
100%.
But so that's one thing which is great about us. So hopefully, it's all about bringing great content.
100%, man, 100%. But yeah, like, what are you feeling like? So obviously, like this was kind of like a light introductory episode, and like I said before, like it's just kind of like a taster, like just to outline about ourselves and whatnot. So as the season goes on, inshallah, we'll have proper, you know, like proper structured episodes.
Yeah, really structured. Yeah,
like delving into, you know, specific issues and having professional people on. So yeah, do you think we've covered?
I think like we said, this is just an introduction based episode. Make sure you you know,
like with the next episode, like what I was thinking was literally we can do the episode on like how Somalis climbed up the social ladder.
Yeah, that's one to look out for. So we're going to be talking about social mobility. We're going to be talking about different, you know, we're talking about the educational side of it. We're gonna be talking so many different things when it comes to representation, media. But I'm not
100%.
gonna go into
No,
too
100%,
much of it.
100%.
But definitely, when I say look out for the next episode,
100%. And obviously, like personal stories of like, for instance, when like Somalis were not rated.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
early years of school. And
early
stuff
years,
like,
ratings, and and that's the whole point of the next episode. It's about how did we climb up that
100%.
ladder? Early 2000s where we're not really seen. We're still settling into the communities.
100%.
We're still trying to gain out. I'm trying to say like we're still trying to understand what the system's like
100%.
to how we are now. Fast forward into 2021
100%.
and what it's like. So definitely. That's the next
so
episode.
I'd say like stay tuned, stay locked in, and follow us on our journey with Hooyo Mataalo podcast. This is episode 1, and look out for episode 2. But what you can do in the meantime is you can follow our Twitter, our Instagram, and just stay up to date with us. And subscribe to the YouTube. Like the support is always needed.
Yeah, listen, support, man. Come on, like this is the whole
support
point.
is always needed.
This is one thing I always want to like, subscribe, share. I'm trying to say
all of that.
Hit up and
all of that. Yeah.
Let's go
So
from there.
just follow us on our journey. But yeah, that's it. I guess
That's all right.